Welcome, everyone. My name is Vineet Arora, and I'm the Dean for Medical Education at the Pritzker School of Medicine, and it is my honor to invite and welcome all of you here to this gorgeous scenery at the Quadrangle Club at the University of Chicago. And we'd like to acknowledge that we are here with all of our Gold Humanism Honor Society honorees tonight, as well as families and friends, faculty in the room with us, and also a special shout out to everyone who is watching at home, the families and friends on our live stream. The Gold Humanism Honor Society is dedicated to recognize, support, and promote the values of humanism and professionalism in medicine. The students being honored here tonight were selected by their peers in recognition of their demonstrated compassion, leadership, and commitment to service as role models of the human connection in healthcare. Now, during this ceremony, we will also be recognizing our Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Award winners, one fourth-year student and one faculty member, as well as a faculty member nominated by the medical students as the University of Chicago candidate for the 2022 Association of American Medical Colleges Humanism in Medicine Award. We're particularly delighted that later this evening we're going to hear from our faculty awardee, Leonard Tao Award winner, who is also our keynote speaker for this event, Dr. Julie Kaur. Dr. Kaur is an associate professor of obstetrics and gynecology. She's also one of our clerkship directors, and I should also say I'm proud to say she's an alumnus of the Pritzker School of Medicine. Tonight, I'd like to also thank all the University of Chicago faculty and staff, our friends and family in the room here, as well as watching at home, because events like this evening are part of an ongoing effort to sustain and advance a culture of humanistic, patient-centered care. I would also like to thank Dr. Nicola Orlov in her role as chapter advisor for our Gold Humanism Honor Society chapter. And I would, before I hand over the ceremony to her, I would also like to invite a special guest who's joining us today, who is our Dean for the Pritzker School of Medicine. He'll be attending his first medical school event live with us. Dr. Mark Anderson is here with us, so I'm going to invite him to the podium to just welcome everyone and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arora. It is really a privilege and a great pleasure to stand here amongst you for the first medical school event. I am your new dean. I'm somewhere in the very beginning of my 5th month, and I've spent time meeting people. I have more people to meet, but I'm glad to be able to punctuate that process by being here to celebrate humanism and its explicit rewards at our medical school. You know, we do many things and are called to serve in many ways, but at the core of it, for it to work, for the best of it, it has to have a humanistic thread. And I think that's true with the mission, vision, values exercise that many of you have been asked to participate. We kicked it off yesterday, and this thing that you are identified by your classmates, which are your best friends and probably in some ways your most knowledgeable critics. It means a lot. And so I think you take this little candle and lead on into your career and through the people you'll teach and touch, as well as your patients, to make the world a better place through your humanistic core. So I'm so proud of you and so grateful to be here amongst you. I'm going to hand this now to Dr. Orlov.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, and welcome to our students, to our faculty, and to all of the families who are here today to celebrate our outstanding students. So the Gold Humanism Honor Society recognizes our students, residents, and faculty who are exemplars of compassionate patient care, who serve as role models, mentors, and leaders in medicine, and who inspire those around them to cultivate those values in the service of our patients. Inspiration for Gold came from medical educators and residency program directors who expressed a need to identify those applicants to residency training programs who were truly outstanding in their clinical and interpersonal skills. In 2005, the Pritzker School of Medicine established their chapter of the Gold Humanism Honor Society, and the society overall now has over 40,000 members, both in training and in practice. Membership in Gold goes beyond selection and induction into this society tonight. Its members have a responsibility to model, support, and advocate for compassionate patient-centered care throughout their careers. Gold Humanism members are nominated by their peers, as Dr. Aurora said. They are asked to consider who they would want caring for themselves or family members and who already serve to them as role models. So it's truly an honor for me to participate in the recognition of these outstanding students and faculty tonight. The first part of our program will be to recognize Pritzker's 2023 Leonard Tao awardees. The Leonard Tao Award is given to those who best demonstrate Arnold P. Gold Foundation's ideals of outstanding compassionate care, respect for patients, their families, and healthcare colleagues, and clinical excellence. Each year, one fourth-year student and one faculty member are selected by the class upon the completion of their clinical rotations. I would like to invite Olivier Joseph to join me up on the podium to introduce the fourth-year student awardee. And after he finishes, we will invite Maria Ruiz, who will then introduce our faculty awardee. I'm going to switch spots with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Orlov. And good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing our student recipient. During fourth year, I've had a lot of time to reflect with my friends on our journey. From these conversations, I've concluded that what many of us are most proud of, particularly those of us who are Black and brown in medicine, is that we've reached this point in our journeys with the confidence of knowing who we are and the knowledge that we are stepping into the arena of medicine as our authentic selves, not immune, but resilient to the external pressures of a system designed to discourage us from bringing our whole selves into this craft. That couldn't be any truer today for Ehizoka Ihionkan. Whether it's in the classroom, the wards, IM sports, or even on Pritzker's Wellness Committee, Ehi brings his whole authentic self to the table. And in showing that sincerity and that wisdom, Ehi implicitly invites us and challenges us to do the same. In the words of journalist David Brooks, I've had the gift of getting to learn and live and laugh alongside an individual with a, quote, impressive inner cohesion. Ehi is someone who does not lead a scattershot life, but one that is deeply rooted and deliberate, both future-oriented and grounded in the present and the past. Ehi is personified leadership, humility, and thoughtfulness. He is often thinking about someone other than himself and will think twice over, even 3 times over before acting. And most admirably, he recognizes what needs to be done and he does it. Ehi, there's a word for what you call that, and that's character. You have character. I speak on behalf of my whole class when I say that just from talking to you, we feel a little bit wiser. We feel like our load has been lightened just a little bit. And maybe if we can get a chuckle out of you, maybe a little bit funnier. But nonetheless, we feel heard and we feel valued. Ehi, your character has taken us a long way. The Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Award is presented to a graduating fourth-year student who best demonstrates ideals of outstanding compassion in the delivery of care, respect for patients, their families, and healthcare colleagues, as well as demonstrated clinical excellence. There is no one more deserving, no one who best embodies those traits than this year's recipient. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce the Leonard Tao Humanism and Medicine Award to my classmate, future colleague, friend and brother, Ehisoka Ihionkan.
Can I invite Maria Ruiz up? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce Dr. Julie Kaur as the recipient of the Leonard Tao Humanism and Medicine Award, which is presented to a faculty member who leads by example in incorporating humanism in the care of patients. You already heard this, but I will say it again because she is so involved in our medical center and at our medical school. Dr. Kaur is the Associate Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the Program Director for the Fellowship in Complex Family Planning at the University of Chicago. She teaches at the medical school, and she's also a co-clerkship director. To medical students, Dr. Kaur is known as an outstanding educator. From the preclinical years, we learned from Dr. Kaur the foundations of physiology and pathophysiology, and a patient-centered approach to pelvic examinations. Dr. Kaur is known to us as a compassionate physician. Many of us have seen her expertise at the bedside. She's invested in providing health care. Part of that is that she makes space for her patients to bring their whole selves into her clinic. Dr. Kaur is known to us as an empowering mentor. I personally have had the privilege to work with Dr. Kaur for 4 years now, and let me tell you, she is brilliant. She has also been so understanding, so supportive of me in my professional and personal life, which is important for all medical students, but I think it's especially important among Black and Brown students who face different challenges in medical school. I'm sure other students would say the same things about her. Dr. Kaur is known to us as an outstanding educator, a compassionate physician, an empowering mentor, but also an author, an ethicist, and so many other things. She's so deserving of this award. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kaur.
Okay, I stay up here. Thank you, Maria. Oh my God, it's really bright. Thank you, Maria, for those kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of our union is strong. You know, I'm realizing that's not the right talk I'm supposed to be giving right now, but the lapel pins have really thrown me off. You all look like Congress people. But I'll actually give my correct speech. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. And I will say that looking at this group of students makes it even that more special. This group of students, I don't know, I think we need to take a second and remember that you all started pre-COVID, but you were first years as we entered COVID. And that is not at all lost on me. And COVID has really impacted your whole experience in medical school. I've had the pleasure of getting to know many of you throughout these years, and I can attest to the fact that you're all incredibly deserving of this recognition. I've been here now at the University of Chicago as faculty for 10 years, having started as a Pritzker student over 20 years ago. And so, not surprising to those who know me, I've been waxing nostalgic quite a bit. And I was thinking about a talk I gave earlier on in my career here as faculty, where I recalled a story from my first day on clerkships on my peds rotation. And I remember being there, super nervous, bright and early, and there was a faculty member who was there who looked at me and said, "Oh, that smile is going to be wiped off your face by the end of this year." I was pretty taken aback. That faculty member is very much no longer here at the institution, but I remember being very taken aback and was really thrilled a year later when that prophecy did not come to fruition. And I'm thrilled that, almost 20 years later, that still has not come to fruition. And at the prior talk that I gave, I spoke about the fact that something for me that I think really has helped maintain that smile was the fact that I chose a specialty. I chose to go into something that really lights the fire in my belly. And what lights the fire in my belly is combining my intellectual interests and my social values, being able to apply both of those into what I do, and that's really what I do on a daily basis in reproductive health care and in complex family planning in particular. But I've slowly kind of unknowingly slipped from junior faculty into mid-career, and I wanted to, I tried to take some intentional, an intentional look at what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. Because it's one thing to be going into a specialty that you all have chosen for whatever reason kind of lights the fire in your belly. But then, at a certain point, there's a very practical, day-to-day, what do I do with my days? In academic medicine in particular, which I anticipate most, if not all of you, will go into. And I thought about some words from a book called Ask for It, which some of you may have read, by Babcock and Lashover. And just paraphrasing, the one quote that really stuck out from that book was to identify the things in your work, your day-to-day work, that bring you the most joy, and try to increase the amount of space that work takes in your day-to-day job. And so in kind of response to that, I thought about, what is it that really brings me the greatest joy? And I'm not saying this just because of the people in the two front rows, but it really was thinking about working with medical students. I pretty easily identified that as what brings me the most joy and what I do on a very day-to-day basis. And so I wrote an email with a strongly kind of framed argument to my department chair, Dr. Lingell, stating why I thought that I should be considered for the role of the assistant clerkship director. And thankfully, he agreed, and I was able to more formally, have this work that I love doing on a day-to-day basis occupy more space. And so in doing that and increasing my kind of, intentional work with medical students, I want to reflect on a few lessons that I've taken from working with students. And they're really tenets of not just the mentor-mentee relationship, but they also apply to clinical medicine. And I'm going to frame these around 3 mentoring relationships. The first is Megan Tuskin, who was a student that I worked with very early in my time here. And she was the first student that I worked with through SRP. And I really thought that this was going to be kind of a quick, I worked with someone over the summer. But it turns out that this mentee-mentor relationship really kind of underscored the importance of longitudinal relationships. So not only did I work with Megan that summer, I worked with her through second year. I heard her kind of highs and lows of the third year, and then also was able to see her publish her first papers, present at her first national conference, and then go on to have a child in medical school. She's now a practicing psychiatrist. Oh, but I've obtained permission from each of these students to kind of talk about them. And so again, as I learned about the importance of establishing and kind of the joy of seeing these longitudinal relationships, I also started to appreciate those longitudinal relationships in my clinical practice. You'll see when you first get out, you kind of see patients and you don't necessarily, it's just the beginnings of these relationships. But over the 5 years that I worked with Megan, I also had 5 years of working with patients and particularly with adolescents, seeing them go through, again, their highs and their lows of adolescence, and most of them coming through to the other side of adulthood, really proud of who they've become. So the first tenet is really appreciating those longitudinal relationships in medicine. The second tenet is sometimes taking the unexpected path in medicine. And that came about with Ava Ferguson Bryant, who many of you probably know as a surgical resident, but I got to know her as a medical student at Pritzker when she approached me asking if she could take a year off to work with me to learn qualitative research. I responded, I said, that's a big responsibility. I don't have the capacity to do that, but come and talk to me, and, I'll try to point you in the right direction. Well, she told me what she wanted to do, and she wanted to study the first pelvic examination experiences that people undertook and kind of how that impacted subsequent gynecologic care. And anyone who knows me would know, and Maria can attest to this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And so I, said, okay, let's do this, and ended up going on this journey with her and with subsequently other students that I hadn't really expected. And it was a little bit extra work, but it was absolutely worth it. And so, again, kind of opening the door and exploring unexpected paths has been incredibly rewarding in clinical medicine. For example, for me, clinical medical ethics, doing a fellowship that now, sometimes you all will see me in the NICU or in the surgical ICU, not taking care of gynecologic patients, but seeing patients who are primarily, I'm seeing them from ethics consultation, and that's really expanded my practice and brought me great reward. And then the third tenet and the third mentoring relationship is with Maria Ruiz and Brianna Chisholm, who I know is here, AKA Chizzy. And I will say that these two really reinforce the role of social justice and bringing that to the bedside. Again, these two I met in the doldrums, really what I refer to as the dark days of COVID in March through August of 2020. And I will say that in addition to the smiles on my kids' faces, my work with these two really got me through those days. And that's not an exaggeration. And of course, the support of my loving husband. Sorry. And I will say that the work with them was not just exceptional based on their personalities, their enthusiasm, their excellence in what they were doing from a research perspective, but also their strong commitment to bringing social justice into research and also our interactions with community members that we engaged with through that project. And that reminded me to think about that on a day-to-day basis in my clinical work and how social justice fits into my day-to-day practice in reproductive health care for adolescents, young adults, and in abortion and contraception care. So bringing it all back, thinking about this award and trying to maintain one's humanity in what has become an increasingly challenging profession. The three kind of take-home points that I impart to you all is to make sure that you're doing something that really lights the fire in your belly, thinking about day-to-day practice and what brings you the most joy in what you're doing, and really figure out a way to carve out time, preferably with buyout, in order to make that a really an established part of what you do. And then finally, I would say my third lesson, perhaps the most important, is no matter what you do, figure out a way to work with medical students. It's just incredibly fulfilling, and you all are just tremendous. It's so great to see your faces, and you are so deserving of this award, so thank you.
Wow, it's a tough act to follow, Dr. Kaur. And I was thinking as you were talking about the dark days of COVID, and I met many of you during those days, and also the things that bring me joy, which is seeing aspiring physicians thrive. And so on that note, I can really think of no other way than to say I'm so pleased to be here to take us through to the next heart of our ceremony, and which is honoring our students who are going to be inducted this evening. And so for many of you familiar with the Gold Humanism Honor Society, and for those that may not be, I wanted to first draw your attention to the lapel pin that many of our students are wearing that's provided by the Arnold P. Gold Foundation. These pins are meant to be worn on your white coats as a symbol of dedication to being a role model and a mentor for humanism and medicine for years to come. And so we're very, very proud of all of you for that. Our students tonight are also going to be receiving a book by Dr. Rana Adwish, a pulmonary critical care physician who wrote a memoir called In Shock about her personal experiences with shock and being admitted to her own ICU, which is incredibly powerful. And this book was identified by Dr. Orlov as an appropriate way to highlight the importance of compassion and humanism in the practice of medicine, and it's provided as a gift from Pritzker. So I can think of no better gift than that to really highlight the importance of the occasion and humanism in medicine. So now we will begin the induction by calling students up to the stage individually to receive their framed certificates, and then the students will take their seat. And so to begin this portion, I'd like to invite again Dr. Orlov to the podium, who will announce the student names.
Thank you, Dr. Aurora. And before we begin, I will just share with you all that in the weeks leading up to today, I reached out to your faculty mentors, your attendings from the wards, your research mentors, and asked them to share a few reflections about the ways that you all demonstrated humanism on the wards. Thank you to our faculty members who met our deadlines and submitted those quotes. We really appreciate it. So as I call your names, I am going to read one of the quotes that I received about you. I ask that you please stay in your seat until I finish the quote. These quotes have also been put into a letter form, which is in the bags below your seats. I would suggest that you hang on to those letters, save them, share them with your families, read them during residency when times get hard, because they will, and this will hopefully help you guys recenter. So we will get started, and I will start with Dana Anderson. So Dana has a calm maturity about her that is utterly trustworthy and reassuring. She integrated seamlessly into the team, was admired by the residents for her diligence, and was a consummate professional. Dana was well liked on all levels, by patients and families, by nurses and support staff, and by fellow students, residents, and attendings. She has an extremely special sweetness about her that quickly endears all to her. Congratulations, Dana. I have to give a hug. Next is Eric Arellano. Eric. What differentiates Eric from his colleagues is a combination of a relaxed personality, a hard work ethic, and a humanistic approach to patients and colleagues alike. He has a strong passion for underserved care. This was a major factor in his decision to move to Chicago and train on the south side at the University of Chicago. Working in our trauma surgical ICU served to strengthen his convictions in underserved care for at-risk populations. A primary mission for Eric is to improve Latinx recruitment into the physician workforce. To accomplish this goal, he served as an admission coordinator for LMSA and is a member of the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine's admission committee. He has volunteered his time in free clinics throughout his career, including in Tucson, Philadelphia, and the south side of Chicago. Eric envisions a career dedicated to serving the underserved. Congratulations. Next is Santiago Avila. Santiago also sees the value and goodness of all around him. He is dedicated to decreasing health disparities and also passionate about teaching and mentorship. Santiago is a consummate mentor even at this early stage in his career. I have observed him provide longitudinal mentorship to both an undergraduate student and a high school student that work in my research group. With Santiago's direct guidance and mentorship, both students presented oral abstracts at international meetings. Reem Hamouda. Reem is highly motivated, focused, and a dedicated physician in training. She uses her considerable energy and intellect to help increase health equity among the patients she serves, in her community and at a national level through her focus on kidney transplant allocation policies. She also generously gives her time to assist her classmates, whether it's in serving as a TA for the HERE course, offering an impromptu study session, or helping a friend going through a difficult time. She is both compassionate and courageous. Her sense of justice is unwavering. She stands up for her patients and her belief in high quality, equitable care, even to her perceived detriment. Congratulations, Reem. Sean He. Sean has a wonderful inherent curiosity and a kind, calm demeanor with patients. I observed him taking a history and communicating the hematology recommendations on several occasions, and he impressed me with his thoughtfulness and respect for patients and their families. He has an emotional intelligence and an ability to connect with children of all ages while earning the trust and respect of their families. He was able to discern when the patient or their parent was anxious, bored, worried, upset, or tired, and he modified his questions and behavior accordingly in order to provide the best care. Many family members are understandably stressed when meeting a hematology oncology consultant, and Sean took the time to elicit and answer their questions and provide reassurance and education. Ehi Ihionken. Ehi's altruistic nature notably surpasses that of his peers. His compassionate tendencies were consistently evident when interacting with families. Ehi provided in-depth yet easy-to-understand plans for even the most complicated patients during rounds. This was completed in such a gentle fashion that many patients felt very comfortable around Ehi. For instance, I vividly recall Ehi being asked to play video games with one of his patients. This natural ease was also demonstrated when examining infants in the nursery. Although parents were exhausted with the birthing process, they were so appreciative of Ehi's compassionate nature. As an attending, it was refreshing to see such empathy from a medical student. Where are my eyes going? Olivier Joseph. One of the things that stands out so quickly when you work with Olivier is just how good he is with patients and families. He has an immense ability to build rapport and form a connection with patients of all backgrounds, leveraging that ability to advocate for them clinically. Our whole team was struck by and impressed with his ability to be the voice for his patients and their families. He combined his knowledge of who they were with his understanding of their medicine around their clinical condition to advocate for holistic plans for their care. When Olivier was able to reveal something about the patient that we had missed, often Olivier was able to reveal something about a patient that we had missed that allowed us to optimize their care. Every time he presented, it felt like our team learned just a little bit more about how to care for people, not just patients. Manizha Komatov. Manizha consistently embodied core principles of humanism through her hospital medicine sub-internship rotation. One patient Manizha cared for was a woman with advanced dementia on hemodialysis who presented with failure to thrive. After evaluating for potential reversible conditions, it was determined that the patient's dementia had progressed to the point that she would no longer eat. Manesia expertly led the discussion with the patient's family members and explored with them the implications of their loved one's condition. When tube feeding was brought up, she shared literature showing that tube feedings for patients with advanced dementia does not prolong life. Manesia answered the family's questions with compassion and empathy and led the transition of the patient's care to hospice. When the family reacted with dismay upon learning that dialysis would not be continued under hospice care, Manesia did not shy away from explaining the consequences of stopping this treatment. She explained the realities in an open, sincere, and most kind manner. Manesia's devotion to treating the human spirit was truly exemplary. Leslie McCauley. We live in a time and a place where extremely difficult societal challenges warrant a clear-sighted but determined leadership. Leslie's capacity to offer such advocacy and leadership is truly exceptional. She stands her ground while defending vulnerable patients and colleagues, but does so in a way that effectively recruits a broad coalition of allies to the effort. She accomplishes this through a truly unique blend of values, eloquence, and empathy for everyone around her. We are extremely lucky as a community to have her in our midst. Michael Okori. Dr. Okori was an outstanding sub-intern on the surgical oncology service. His commitment to patient-centered care was noteworthy. He is kind, compassionate, and always willing to listen to his patients. Despite all his impressive accomplishments, he is humble and respectful to residents, nurses, and our staff. In lab, he was enthusiastic about the work of others and always eager to help. He was incredibly supportive, a great friend to everyone, and was a great mentor to junior residents. He is the type of leader that makes everyone better. Maria Ruiz. I have had the good fortune to observe Maria progress through Pritzker starting early in her MS1 year. From my initial review of her CV and my first conversation with her during our SRP interview, it was clear that this mission. Maybe I should have reached out to someone else. It was clear that that she was mission-driven with strong commitment to community service. Through her experiences in Guatemala and New York prior to medical school, she gained a deep understanding of the challenges that individuals face in seeking out and receiving health services. While at Pritzker, Maria has continued to advocate for the health needs of individuals, especially Latinx individuals, and has also focused her efforts on supporting the career advancement of the Latinx pre-med and medical students. In our research together, she demonstrated tremendous aptitude in conducting interviews about sensitive topics. In everything that she does, Maria demonstrates the utmost integrity, commitment to advocating for the needs of others, and pursuit of excellence in caring for the underserved. Michael Sun. Michael exhibits humanism at every turn, with patients, colleagues, in scholarship, and within our broader community. We work together in multiple small groups, including SRP and preceptor group during his internal medicine clerkship, and I was always struck by how Michael was a grounding presence for all members. He was inquisitive, thoughtful, acted with integrity, and respect at all times. Michael brings these same qualities to his personal interactions with others, whether it is at the bedside, during a long conversation about career goals and values, or even just a quick hallway or social rounds chat. You always know in speaking with him that you have his full attention, presence, and consideration, which is a rare and wonderful gift to receive from another busy human being. Michael is an extraordinary member of our community, and his humanism shines in everything he does. Sarah Vaughn, my running partner. I was blessed to observe Sarah work with my own patients. What I remember most about Sarah was her deep, sincere, and caring feelings for every patient. She was concerned about patients in the context of their families, their work lives, their ability to access care and resources. She treated everyone with respect, kindness, and utter tenderness. I know more than one patient commented on her presence and calming demeanor. Never presumptuous, but always thoughtful, rational, and humble. Sarah routinely added to our conversation and was in complete control of her patients, even in the stickiest and sickest of situations. And Zaina Zayed. I had the opportunity to round with Zaina during her internal medicine clerkship. During our discussions on rounds, Zaina would frequently have thoughtful conversations about the care of a patient that showed her interest in how the larger healthcare system interacted with the individual. For the patients she was assigned, she took strong ownership of them and put in significant efforts to establish a meaningful rapport. She did this with a level of maturity beyond what is expected of a third-year medical student. So now that everyone has received their awards, I would love to ask the students to stand up, face the audience and the camera to receive a round of applause. That's good. Thank you all. Thank you all. And now finally, I would like to invite Michael Okori back up to this podium. He will introduce our Pritzker's 2022 AAMC Arnold P. Gold Humanism in Medicine nominee. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Good evening. It is my great pleasure to introduce our nominee for the Arnold P. Gold Foundation Humanism in Medicine Award, Dr. Abdullah Pratt. This award recognizes individuals who not only possess excellent medical skills, but also embody the humanistic qualities of compassion, empathy, and dedication to the patient-doctor relationship. Dr. Pratt, a native of the South Side of Chicago, has embodied these characteristics as a medical student, resident, and now as a faculty member in the Department of Emergency Medicine. Dr. Pratt is a force for good on the South Side of Chicago, especially most notably for his anti-violence advocacy work, and he's been a mentor for countless residents and medical students like myself. I first met Dr. Pratt when I was an undergrad visiting the campus as a summer student, and he was a second-year medical student, and he's always been an example of excellence for me. And so it is such an honor to be here as he's nominated for this prestigious award. So let's all put our hands together to welcome Dr. Pratt and thank him for his dedication to his patients and also the Southside community.
Thank you so much for that, Mike. It means so much more coming from you, bro. You know, we've been through the thick of the thin. What Mike didn't tell you is that was a long time ago, man. That was like goodness, that was like summer of what, 2012, something like that. Oh man, I remember him like that was yesterday. Mike hadn't aged a day. But what I will say is that you never really know. You know, the medical students all know me very, very well. And my office hours are usually spent in the ER, right? You all got to come find me in the trauma bay to get mentorship or whatever. And, you know, I'll work on that as time goes on. But I always say you never know. You never know as an ER physician what you're going to get. I never knew growing up on the South Side what would happen when I walked out the front doors. You know, I never knew when that next call from a loved one was bad news. And unfortunately, during my second year, right after, you know, right when I first met Mike, just as he was about to start, you know, going through SOMER, the P-SOMER program, I lost my older brother to gun violence. And that was a moment that I never really knew would happen because he was my hero. But at that time, I also never really knew how much Pritzker would rally around me. The great Dean Holly Humphrey literally gave a eulogy to my brother in one of the worst neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago. She may have been the only white face in there outside of a few other medical students. And at a time when you're at your bottom, that means a ton. And I've tried to put that back into every little thing that I do, but you never really know. When I was just finishing medical school, I never really knew if I was actually going to match at UChicago. It was a big mystery. Don't let them retell that story to none of you all, right? Like, it was a huge mystery, and every step of the way, when I was a SOMER student like Mike was, I didn't know if I'd get into Pritzker, but I fought. I did everything that people told me to do, and I was lucky enough to get there off the wait list like July 1st or something like that. When I was applying in a residency, I didn't know what would happen to the point where my mentors were like, hey, don't even do an away. You might look better on paper than you do in real life because you've never done an away rotation. Just slide in there, you know what I'm saying? And get in there and then prove people, prepare and do the right thing. When we fought for a trauma center, I didn't know if I'd be kicked out of medical school. That's real. That's real for you all. Like, I had all the advice in the world telling me like, hey man, like, it's a better way to do this thing, dog. But if it wasn't for Dean Woodruff, if it wasn't for Holly Humphrey, if it wasn't for Dean Polanski, I would have never learned those things to be able to teach you all one day, every day bedside, or every day in the trauma bay, every day in the community when you all come and help do the works that I do. I remember the first workshop that I was asked to do that was emergency preparedness and medical careers exposure. And it was a big day. I had never done anything like that, right? I went from watching the great Bill McDade and Nikki Davis now, put on great pipeline programs every year. And for once, somebody was like, hey, D, as a first-year resident, you should give this thing a shot. And if it wasn't for the Pritzker students at the time picking up all the slack, making the calls, giving me the advice, hey, maybe the students were like this, maybe the students were like that, then, you know, what we know as the MedKeep program would never, ever be in existence. And as I was graduating residency, I literally didn't know down to the day whether I'd be asked to apply into being faculty. So you never really know. When I didn't have very many accolades and I did find out that I was invited to apply, I stood up here about 4 years ago, and it was the students that voted me AOA. When I never became AOA, never even wanted to. I thought like, hey man, this thing ain't for me. I'm just gonna focus on just making it through med school, like just not failing too much and just pushing through despite my family being torn apart due to my brother's death. And so now when I sit here last year and I found out that it was the Pritzker students that voted me Faculty of the Year, that means a lot, right? That means that my goals in being able to try to teach you all one little thing when you all leave here as leaders, which is that this community isn't them, it's us, right? That the people at the worst of the worst need you all to be able to learn a little bit, find a little bit of affinity for them so that when you go become my boss one day as MD PhDs, Mike, or if you or if you become my colleague one day, which it very well may be happening, that you all see that community as us. Because for me, that's everybody I love, care, and grew up around, right? Every day I get a phone call outside of these hours. As you all know, I maybe have left shift an hour ago, get a call, hey, you know, my auntie's in the ER waiting room. What can you do about that? And I'll be racing back up there to try to figure out how to get them from not being in the waiting room another 8 hours, right? If it's before work, many of you all have been like, hey, hey, D, I saw you in awards. What are you doing up here? Many of you all have called me up there. And I'm like, hey, man, this patient, I'm making sure that they follow through. I'm making sure that the family feels like they're comforted. And during COVID, we did a lot of that. I was the FaceTime guy, right? Running up from shift like, hey, they alive. I'm telling you. No, they not experimenting on your loved one. I promise you that, right? And that was my role. But most of the time, I hope that you all got how much we fight for our patients, all of these faculty members. It's not just me. That's what I picked up from Pritzker. That's what I picked up from my mentees. Hopefully, that's what the spirit of you all voting me into this award, when again, I didn't receive gold humanism. I wasn't, you all are the medical students that I wished I was in Pritzker. That's facts. Don't let nobody tell you different, right? That I aspired to be like you all were at that time. So that's why it means so much to me. And I never really knew that I would get this award. They all come in surprises, pleasant surprises that hopefully we look back on, laugh on in the future. But most importantly, hopefully I find us both bedside fighting for the same patients that don't have that many people to fight for them, fighting for patients that the word equity means absolutely nothing to them, right? When you say that the problem's yay high and nobody can figure out how to get the solutions half as high, and then that patient says, well, I see you doing this, I see you doing that, right? That's why we all fight so hard, so that equity is there, and then diversity and inclusion hopefully follow after such. But that's my very, very biggest hope, is that that's the one thing you all take away from being in the Gold Humanism Society, is that you gotta fight for them, because if you don't, then you don't sleep at night, and that's how you lead to burnout, right? I hopefully sleep at night pretty good many nights, even if I gave every single thing I had before, during, and after shift. So I thank you all. I thank Dean Aurora. I wouldn't be here without yourself, and I thank all of you all who know you all had a piece in this puzzle, and that I wouldn't literally be up here had it not been for certain conversations, some of them sterner than others, right? Or had it not been for encouragements to keep going when I thought that I should quit. So thank you all so much for this award. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pratt, and we are so proud of you, and thank you for your wonderful remarks. At this time, we have a special acknowledgement that we'd like to make, and so to do that, I would like to call up Dana Anderson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Aurora, and thank you all for joining us tonight. It's really an honor to receive this award for all of us. It means a lot, and so for all of you to be here celebrating with us means a ton. I am here to thank Dr. Orlov, which I was not prepared to follow any of my classmates at all. It was a brief thank you, but I think we would all be amiss if I didn't mention that although Dr. Orlov is our chapter advisor, she also wears many hats at the university and the hospital, but she is also somebody who embodies the philosophy of the Gold Humanism Award herself. I wish I had wrote something that was more, articulate, but she is somebody who is not only constantly engaging her empathy with her patients, thoughtfully speaking with medical students and residents, holding space for us in both the good times and the really not so good times, which inevitably happen in medical school and beyond. She is somebody who we all look to when things are getting tough, and we are so grateful to have you not only as our chapter advisor, but also as somebody who we can celebrate this with and be with every day. So thank you, Dr. Orlov. We have a card that we are hiding from you.
All right, we are nearing the end, I promise. So I am going to invite the students to stand and face the audience again. But please take your programs with you, because on the back is the gold oath, and I would like to invite you to recite that oath to the audience. Did you guys see that? Great. And I will read that with you. I pledge by all that I hold dear as a physician, I will care for my patients with compassion, respect, empathy, integrity, and clinical excellence. I will listen to my patients with my whole being. I will advocate for each patient as a unique individual. I will serve as a role model and mentor to promote humanism in healthcare. I will remember always the healing power of acts of caring. I will dedicate myself to joining with others to make healthcare optimal for all. Thank you.
And that brings us to a close to tonight's ceremony honoring our awardees, Dr. Kaur and Dr. Pratt, both alumni of the Pritzker School of Medicine, as well as our wonderful students who are soon to be alumni of the Pritzker School of Medicine. And these events would not be possible without a team of faculty and staff and so many others who helped do this. And so in addition to Dr. Orlov, who we've acknowledged, I really also want to give a special thank you to both Kate Blythe, Candy Gard. We have Dr. Woodruff and Dr. Lee from our student affairs teams who are so invested in making sure all of these events get done smoothly and work, and be able to actually share that with your family and friends does not come together overnight. And so just a special shout out to them. And then lastly, all of our guests that are here with us. We are so grateful that we can have guests. And at this time, I want to encourage both our students and our guests to join us at the reception across the hall. And also, last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that we are just grateful to have incredible leadership in the dean's office who support medical education to their fullest. And so, Dr. Anderson, we're so pleased to have you with us. And so at this time, I'd like to send my personal congratulations to all of you and look forward to welcoming you to the reception. Thank you.